We are the 3-4 Humanities teaching team. I'm Mary Barber.
I'm Lauren Trenery.
I'm Bethany Stanley.
And I'm Michael Williams. We would like to welcome you here this evening to our Humanities Open Night.
Unfortunately, one of our team members couldn't be with us tonight, Tuba Uzan, as she is currently at home with her newborn baby.
We hope this video provides you with some insight into the Humanities program at our school.
We respectfully acknowledge the past and present traditional owners of the land of the Indigenous people.
We acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land and respect their culture and identity, which has been bound up with the land and sea for generations.
We further acknowledge the important role Indigenous people have and continue to play in our communities.
We acknowledge the contributions that Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people have in educating all people in this country, which we share and live in together.
We would also like to acknowledge
that a treaty has not been entered into,
that we always have,
and still continue to benefit from this.
If you were to describe humanities education, what comes to mind? At our school, we believe it means advice for life. This phrase captures the value of humanities in education. But why do we teach it? The Australian curriculum is one reasoning for humanities education, which draws on student experiences to gain a better understanding of the world, other people, relationships, and understanding and acknowledging past and present events. Through the Australian curriculum, the topics of history, geography, civics and citizenship, and economics and business are explored. As well as the curriculum, all teachers have to uphold a set of standards formed by the Australian Institute for School Leadership. Within these standards, there are 2 points which resonate with the teaching scene in humanities education. 1.4 Strategies for Teaching Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Students, and 2.4 Understand and Respect Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander People to promote reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians. So what do the domains look like? The humanities domain taught within Australia's curriculum include, but are not limited to, history, which teaches the development of Australia's rights and the participation of Australia in those rights, the contributions and achievements of groups and individuals in Australia's development, the longevity of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people's history and culture, perspectives relating to the First Fleet and colonisation, the causes and relationships between World War I, II and the Cold War, and global influences on Australian culture. Geography teaches about strategies to enhance livability, worldviews about sustainability, Australia's management and planning of urban future, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders' connections to place, migration, how people and natural systems are connected, how places in Australia are connected to other places globally, and the role of organisations in improving human well-being for a sustainable future. Civics and citizenship teaches global connectedness, Australia's rights and responsibilities and international obligations, operations within the 3 levels of government and legal system, values which underpin Australia's government, the role of social media in shaping attitudes around diversity, and the importance of the democratic process. Finally, economics and business, which teaches the performance of Australia's economy, different ways entrepreneurs and businesses succeed, the development of democracy and the impact of significant periods within society, the social structures of ancient societies, the responsibilities of employees and employer in the workplace, and how societies use limited resources for changing needs now and in the future. There are several reasons why humanities is taught within society: to document experience, to make sure history does not repeat itself, to understand how our country has come to be and the connections between past and present, to have a deeper understanding and respect for the Indigenous people of Australia, and to understand the wider world and how Australia fits within it. However, at our school, we believe teaching humanities is illustrated by the quote, "If students learn a concept thoroughly the first time it is introduced, one will get twice the result from half the effort. Otherwise, one will get half the result with twice the effort." Meaning, we as teachers need to teach these students accurately now so they will be better able to pass history and humanities on to the next generation.
studies in humanities helps develop each student's skills and ideas. Through exploration, students are guided to develop the ability to question, think critically, solve problems, communicate effectively, make decisions and adapt to change. It encourages them to research, question, investigate and critically answer questions by analysing a range of sources. Humanities allow both educational professionals and our students to explore the diverse heritage of different cultures, gain insight into ethical and moral issues, develop informed opinions, use technologies, reflect upon their own identities, and provides them with the opportunity to understand their world around them and its influencing histories, allowing them to be informed and empowered within today's society. The humanities equips students with skills to help them navigate and make sense of the complex world they live in. The inclusion of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives are a vital part of contemporary Australian education. Teaching these perspectives, we have a greater understanding of who we are, the traditions that were here before us, the history of what happened, along with understanding where we live, its local history and its people. The governing body of the Australian curriculum recognises Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders as the first Australians. As such, ACARA defines Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders as a cross-curricular priority. This priority states that equipping students with this knowledge and understanding enriches all students' abilities to participate in the ongoing development of Australia. The participation of all students in this engages them in reconciliation, respect and recognition of the world's oldest living cultures. By linking content across learning areas, along with recognising important dates, students develop and deepen their understanding of Aboriginal histories, cultures and two of these standards are directly focused to the inclusion of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives. These are known as 1.4 and 2.4. 1.4 is strategies for teaching Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students, and 2.4 is understand and respect Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Informing students about our past will equip young Australians with knowledge and understanding when recognising the challenges, moral and ethical issues society faces today, such as that of equality. At Year 3-4 standard, the humanities are designed to lead students to begin thinking and responding to these issues. They are encouraged to question and explore other points of view, distinguish fact from fiction, interpret information, discuss and reflect. The 3 R's, respect, reconciliation and relationship, are constant in this teaching of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander, as it is important for both teachers and students to understand this concept. The RRR prototype is an outline design program to help support education professionals in incorporating Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives within the curriculum. The program is structured into 3 models for delivery: knowing yourself, knowing your students, and knowing what you teach.
Pedagogy comes from the Greek root, which means art of teaching children. At our school, we aim to teach our children using various materials and ensuring each child's needs are catered for by blending in different learning styles in our teaching. According to Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences, each human being is capable of 7 relatively independent forms of information processing, with individuals differing from one another in the specific profile of intelligences that they exhibit. In our school, we aim at understanding each student's needs and learning abilities in order to cater for each individual in the classroom. Therefore, we use Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences. We give our students the opportunity to discover their areas of strengths and to develop the full range of intelligences. In our teaching curriculum, we aim to include learning activities that cater for all intelligences, including logical, mathematical, linguistic, musical, spatial, bodily kinesthetic, interpersonal and intrapersonal. In our school, we encourage scaffolding, as Vygotsky believed that when a student is at the zone of proximal development, providing appropriate scaffolding gives the students a boost in order to achieve the task. Once the student has benefited from the scaffolding, they will be able to complete the task on their own. Collaborative learning is also encouraged in our classrooms, as combining different levels of abilities in a group can be beneficial for students' learning. The more advanced peers can help less advanced peers operate within their zone of proximal development. The constructivist view of learning is also strongly encouraged in our school, as it gives learners the opportunity to raise questions, model, interpret, and defend their strategies and ideas. Thanks to the emergence of technological tools, we are able to offer our students a more authentic learning experience based on experimentation and action. With the help of the internet and tools we can use within our classrooms such as laptops, iPads and interactive whiteboards, we give our students the opportunity to engage in online research. Our school believes place-based learning is a great opportunity to enhance students' learning. Therefore, we aim to organise excursions and incursions which will further enhance our students' learning experience. This year, our students have visited Bunjalaka at the Melbourne Museum, in which they have learned a lot about the first people and seen many artefacts on display. We are also very fortunate to have a guest speaker from the Aboriginal cultural background visit our school every year. Our students are privileged to learn the history, culture and lifestyle of the first people from an Aboriginal elder and have the opportunity for their questions to be answered.
Our school prides itself not just on classroom activity, but through its engaging site-based visits within the humanities. While most schools try to have 1 or 2 excursions throughout their humanities unit, neither of which may be related to the First Australians, we guarantee 2 academically supported excursions, both being specifically based on the history and culture of many First Australian societies. Alongside this, we attempt to have an incursion from one of the elders of the local Aboriginal community whose ancestors were the original custodians of the land we inhabit. These visits are all aimed at answering questions that students may have on their relevant topics, acquired from a more knowledgeable other. Our first excursion, based on Indigenous culture, is a trip to the Bunjalaka branch of the Melbourne Museum, typically after the incursion where possible. Depending on where our students' abilities and curiosities arise, we will conduct one of 3 potential tours along the Yarra River, provided by Koori Heritage Trust. All 3 of these tours are a group walk along the Yarra, looking at historically and culturally significant sites to the topics of early settlement, art, historical figures, and how the land has changed and developed over time. These 3 activities are designed to promote understanding of Aboriginal culture in the local area, as well as an understanding of Aboriginal culture around Australia as a whole. The idea of this is to promote the concept of reconciliation through mutual understanding, as seen in the curriculum frameworks previously mentioned.
At our primary school, we work towards new individual goals for students by using scaffolding. The first step of scaffolding students' learning is to use assessment to understand the level each student is at. There are 3 main purposes of assessment that we pay particular attention to, which the Victorian State Government encourages Victorian teachers to use. These purposes of assessment are assessment for learning, assessment of learning, and assessment as learning. Assessment for learning is when teachers use inferences about student progress to inform their teaching. This means that the teaching will use observation to track student progress without assigning the class a formal test to identify their level of understanding. For example, a student may ask more questions, they may no longer need to look at words on the word wall for spelling, and they may be taking part in class discussions more frequently. The result of these observations will be recorded weekly in preparation for parents' reports every term. Assessment of learning is when teachers make judgment on student achievement against goals or standards. These types of assessments are usually formal and/or written. These kinds of assessments are normally used at the end of a humanities unit or topic to track their progress. This means that the teacher will use things such as tests, SACs, exams, projects, and other tasks to assess the students. Student progress is clear and is recorded, kept, and/or used as a reference. Assessment as learning is when students reflect on or monitor their own progress to inform their future learning goals. This includes the progress of their peers during peer assessment tasks. This sort of assessment is important for students as it encourages them to take responsibility for their learning and goal setting. These kinds of assessments can be used at any time throughout the unit. The students can use this assessment to reflect on their learning of a particular lesson or their learning of an overall topic. This will give the students an opportunity to set learning goals for their formal assessments or personal learning goals for personal growth and understanding. Within these 3 purposes of assessment, there are 2 approaches of assessment that are important when assessing student progress, which are used during a learning unit and at the end of a learning unit. These models of assessments are formative assessment and summative assessment. Formative assessment consists of both formal and informal assessments, which are referred to in both assessment for learning and assessment as learning. These assessments inform teachers and students of the ways in which they can progress, improve, and work towards goals during a unit. Summative assessment consists of only formal assessments, which are referred to in assessment of learning. These assessments are normally at the end of a lesson or unit, which evaluate the student's learning of the overall topic. There is a list of expected outcomes of each of these learning purposes on www.education.vic.gov.au, which can also be accessed via a link through our school website. One technique we used previously to celebrate students' work was we created a book consisting of each individual student's work for that lesson. This book was not only made using students' work individually, but students had the chance to collaborate with other students and the teachers to complete this task. The book is now displayed in class for all students to read and or reflect on at any time. We use displays around the classroom to celebrate student work. This encourages ownership of space among their peers, along with sharing their work with their families at the end of the unit on presentation night led by students. The students are encouraged to use the work around them to inspire their new assignments. Students are asked to reflect on their own work and each other's work to create new learning goals for themselves before every new topic is introduced. It is important to our school that we use previous work a student has done to scaffold them and plan the next lesson for a more improved assessment and engagement from each individual student. This means that throughout the year, the students will not only improve over the course of the unit, but they will have their progress displayed on the walls for encouragement and a sense of achievement.